Part 1. The War No One Sees. Introducing the internal battlefield, the invisible struggle that precedes every visible victory. Every man walking toward greatness is already in the middle of a war with no audience, no medals, and no one keeping score. This war doesn't happen on a battlefield. It happens at 2 a.m. when everything is quiet and your mind is loudest. The enemy isn't poverty. It isn't failure. It isn't other people. The enemy is the version of you that wants to stay comfortable. Most people never win this war because they don't even admit it's happening. They call it bad luck. They call it timing. They call it fate. But deep down, in the silence where no one else can hear, you already know the truth. The war is invisible because all real growth happens underground, in the dark, unseen, unrewarded, before anything rises. Success never arrives before the internal work is done. It waits. It watches. It only comes to the man who has already won himself. The nights you sit with your doubts and don't run from them, those nights are the real battlefield. Every empire men built in the outside world was first built and defended inside the mind. That is where your war begins. This is the war no one sees, but is the only war that matters. And you must win it before the world ever gives you a chance. Part 2. The enemies within. Naming the internal forces, fear, laziness, self-doubt, distraction, that fight against the man trying to rise. Before you can fight anything outside of you, you must learn the names of what lives inside you, the enemies you were born carrying. Fear is the first enemy, not the fear of death, but the fear of being seen trying and still failing. Comfort is the second enemy. It wears the face of rest, but carries the weapon of delay. Every day it wins, your future pays the price. Self-doubt is the third enemy. It doesn't stop you with force, it stops you with questions. What if you're not enough? What if you never were? Distraction is the fourth enemy, and the most patient. It doesn't kill your dream in one blow. It bleeds it slowly, one wasted hour at a time. Regret is the enemy that hasn't arrived yet, but it is being built right now by every choice you avoid making today. These enemies don't need weapons because you give them power willingly. Every time you choose sleep over discipline, noise over silence, excuse over action. The ancient warriors knew this. The most dangerous enemy is the one you refuse to acknowledge. Name your weakness or it will name your future. Knowing the path is not the same as walking it, and knowing your enemy is not the same as defeating them. The war requires action, not just awareness. Every man who has ever risen was once on his knees in a room like this, fighting enemies only he could see. The difference is he stood back up. Part 3. The discipline of silence. Why the quiet, unseen hours of private discipline are the foundation of every public achievement. Nobody films the 5 a.m. sessions. Nobody claps for the journaling, the fasting, the reading in the dark. But this is exactly where kings are made. Discipline in silence is the highest form of self-respect, because it means you do it for truth, not for applause. The man who can be alone with himself without running to noise, that man has already won half the war. In the age of constant noise, choosing silence is an act of rebellion. And in that rebellion, clarity is born. Every mile run in the dark when no one is watching teaches your mind one truth. I show up for myself, even when there is no reward. Two versions of you exist every morning. One wants comfort. One wants to become. The one you choose to be, in silence, with no one watching, is who you actually are. The greatest thinkers, builders, and warriors throughout history had one thing in common. They spent enormous amounts of time in uncomfortable silence. Your silent hours are your roots. The world only ever sees the tree, but the roots determine everything the tree will ever become. The man building in silence is not hiding. He is loading, and when he finally moves, the world will have no frame of reference for how far he goes. When the silent hours, when the private moments, when the war inside the room where no one sees you, and the world will one day see only your victories. Part 4. The cost of becoming. What the transformation actually demands, the losses, the loneliness, the sacrifices real growth requires. No one tells you that becoming who you need to be requires the burning of who you used to be. In that fire, you light it yourself. Becoming costs you relationships. People who knew your old self will struggle to accept your new direction, and some will quietly disappear. The moment you decide to grow, you create distance, not out of arrogance, but because the direction you are walking simply has fewer people on it. Every hour you invest in building yourself is an hour borrowed from ease. The cost is real. The question is whether the future you are buying is worth it. Some nights the cost feels unbearable. The exhaustion, the doubt, the invisibility of all. Those are the nights the transformation is actually happening. You are not broken when life puts you under pressure. You're being shaped. The hammer doesn't hate the metal. It is making it into something it could never have been otherwise. The man you want to become already exists. He is just on the other side of the sacrifices you haven't made yet. There will be moments where the cost seems too high. where you wonder if it is worth it. Sit with those moments. Don't run from them. They are testing your sincerity. Nobody at the summit carried comfort up there with them. The summit was bought with the exact things they were willing to leave behind. Pay the cost. All of it. Without resentment. Because the man who pays fully and keeps paying is the only man who ever truly arrives. Part 5. The long dark before the dawn. The waiting period, when you've done the work, but nothing has changed yet. How to survive and hold the line. There is a period in every man's journey where he has done everything right, and still nothing has moved. This is the most dangerous time. The harvest doesn't come when you plant. It comes months later, in a different season, in different light. But only if you kept the ground prepared while you waited. The silence from the world is not rejection. It is a filter. Most men quit during the silence. The ones who stay become untouchable. You don't need to see the full road. You need to walk the 10 feet in front of you every single day, even when the fog refuses to lift. The men who survive the long dark are not the most talented. They are the most committed to showing up, even when showing up yields nothing visible. You are the ember. Even when everything around you has gone cold and gray, the ember that survives the long night is the ember that becomes the morning fire. Grip is not loud. Grip is the quiet refusal to let go when every muscle in your body is screaming to release. The long dark teaches you who you really are. Not who you said you were when it was easy, but who you are when the reward has been stripped away and only the work remains. Every step in the dark still counts. The mountain doesn't care that you can't see the top. It only gives the summit to those who kept moving anyway. The dawn doesn't ask if you deserve it. It comes for everyone. But only the men who survive the full dark are standing to receive it. Part 6. The day you win. What it looks and feels like when internal victory precedes external arrival, and what it demands next. The day you win the quiet war doesn't come with an announcement. No fanfare, no crowd. Just a morning where you wake up and finally feel like yourself. The first victory isn't the money. It isn't the recognition. It is the moment when who you are in private and who you are in public are finally the same man. Success, when it finally arrives for a man who has done the internal work, doesn't feel like luck. It feels inevitable, like an overdue arrival you never stopped preparing for. Look back at the version of yourself that started this war. He didn't need saving. He needed forging. And you were the forge and the metal at the same time. When you win the quiet war, you don't just change your life. You quietly change the air in every room you walk into, because men who have been through the fire carry warmth others can feel. The man who won the war understands. Arrival is not the end of the work. It is the beginning of a larger war, fought at a higher level with higher stakes. Real success is not a destination you reach and rest at. It is a foundation you build so that those who come after you, your children, your students, your people, have somewhere to stand. The greatest sign that you have won is not wealth or status. It is that the chaos outside no longer creates chaos inside. You have found the still point. Write this down. The man who kept his promises to himself in the dark, who showed up, who paid the cost, who survived the silence. That man becomes a force the world cannot ignore. The quiet war is yours to win. Nobody can fight it for you. Nobody can skip it for you. But when you win it, and you will, everything that follows belongs to you. Every single thing.